to another episode of the Highlands Podcast. We're so glad that you're with us. We've been having an incredible journey as we've been having guests talking about different topics. And last episode, if you missed it, we had speaker and author Ellie Kay with us, and she brought some incredible truths and even tips about winning with money. And we're going to continue that conversation with two more experts today. I'm so excited to be joined by Steve Tucker and Krystal DeLeo. And we have a lot of things in store for you as we talk through money and how to win with our finances. And so, Steve, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, yeah. First and foremost, I'm a child of God here, and so blessed to. My wife and I just celebrated our 39th wedding anniversary, wow. And so I'm a father of two kids, and we've lived in the Antelope Valley for about 35 years.
Okay,
I lose track.
That's amazing.
And I've been coming to the Highlands for, I don't know, 25 years or so. Maybe a little bit more.
That's amazing.
Less, but, so I'm a business owner here in the Antelope Valley, and my business, I do own the Wingstop restaurants here in the Antelope Valley. I also had another business here that was pretty successful down below as well. Yeah. And that business I sold here, and I'm just happy to be here.
You have that Midas touch. Everything just turns to gold.
No, it's not me. It's God working through me.
You are humble and generous, Steve, and thank you for being with us. Sure. Krystal, tell us a bit about yourself.
Yes, I'm the finance pastor here at the Highlands, and I'm also a Financial Peace University coach.
Awesome.
And I have 4 kids. I'm married, been married almost 24 years. Yeah. So 3 kids in the college age, and so 1 more to go, and I'm happy to be here.
You know, I'm so glad you both are on because you both have a heart and a passion to help people with finances, and so we're going to talk about those. So we just have our top 5 questions, and these are different topics of finance that we're just going to throw it out to you, and then you just share what God has been imparting to you as far as lessons you've learned. So the first one, let's start with the softball one. It's going to be the learning aspect of finances. What would you, and we'll start with you, Steve, what is the most important financial lesson that you've learned?
Well, it may be, it's to have a heart of gratitude here, and recognizing that God is the provider of all of our resources here. So that's the number one thing for me. I made a commitment, my wife and I made a commitment in 1995 here to trust God with our finances. Wow. And that's what we've been doing ever since here. So it's a wonderful feeling, I'm
That's awesome. I love that. I love that trust, and we're actually going into Thanksgiving season, being grateful. That's our next episode of our podcast of just the ideas of showing more gratitude in life. I think that's such an important thing. What about you, Krystal?
Very similar to Steve. I just putting God first in our finances. I've seen miracle after miracle. I know when we were struggling back in the day, we weren't able to make our car payment. And I remember we had always, given first to the Lord. Yeah. And so I just remember crying out to him. And anyway, we went to church that night, and a lady came and brought an envelope full of money to cover our car payment.
That's amazing.
So just putting God first.
Yeah,
and
that's amazing.
A friend actually just recently told me that she put God first in her finances. They had just moved to this country and were struggling a little bit, and she was down to her last $20 bill, and she wasn't sure if she should pay gas for her husband's new job down to Santa Clarita and back, or if she could buy food for her kids. And so she chose food, and God miraculously kept that gas gauge the same all week long as he traveled back and forth, 45 minutes there, 45 minutes back. And the day he received his first employment check was when the light turned on. So just putting God first, the miraculous happens.
That's amazing.
It's amazing how, when you put God first in your finances, these miracles happen. Here, your car doesn't break down.
That's right.
Your water heater doesn't go out as often.
True. That's true.
Things of that nature.
That's amazing.
Here, so
it's steps of faith too. That I think God blesses the faith that we are exhibiting.
Yeah.
And so let's get practical for this next one, because let's talk about spending for a moment, because we have people watching and listening that are living from paycheck to paycheck. And again, for whatever reasons, we're not going to say necessarily it's spiritual or they're not walking in blessing, but just that's the reality of their life. They've family, they've had emergencies, whatever. So if someone's living paycheck to paycheck right now, what would you encourage them some steps to take to stop that pattern? Because that's not a healthy, it's certainly a more stressful way to live. But Krystal, we'll start with you. What would be some steps that you would encourage somebody who's living paycheck to paycheck, stressed about the car payment, stressed about food, and how can they take some steps so that they're not continuing to do that?
Yeah, besides prayer, prayer is the most important. I would recommend budgeting. Look at your statements from the last 3 months. Put together where your money is going. Know where your money is going. So see, like, have you gone out to eat? Is there any entertainment? Just go line by line. And then there's an app called Every Dollar that that Dave Ramsey offers for free. And you can just plug in your numbers and see where your money is going. You need to know where your money is going. Even if you're living paycheck to paycheck or not making it each month, you need to know where the money is going. Try to cut back. I know I had a student that just recently said he's in a contract for a TV contract, and he wasn't able to cancel it, but he was able to put it on pause. And so just calling those creditors, calling those bills, and making sure that you're making those pauses and seeing where your money is.
I think Dave Ramsey says put a name on every dollar, that everything that you're spending should be accounted for in a budget. Steve, what would you say to that?
No, I agree with Krystal here. Certainly, prayer, putting God first in your finances here, recognizing that He's the provider of everything, having a good heart, a heart of gratitude here. But also the budgeting. That's a great tool that Dave Ramsey has here. Every dollar here. Certainly support that here. And take action. You have to do it. Sometimes you can't just talk about it. You got to be about it, right? And I mean, so many people, say in business, and they talk. They want to do this. They want to do that, right? But you got to step out in faith, here, and take that step here, and just do it. And you'll be surprised at what God will do in your life, and then get out of debt.
Yeah, that's good.
Get out of debt. It's just a huge chain that's holding you back from opportunity, really,
that's true.
here. How many times have you been presented with an opportunity where it's a giving opportunity and you can't?
That's true.
Because you have to make this payment or that payment, right?
That's true.
Here, so get out of debt is really big.
Solomon writes in Proverbs, the borrower is slave to the lender. And it is that mentality that we owe too much, that we aren't able to be generous. We're going to talk about that in a moment.
Can I just add
please.
Here, Dave Ramsey, Financial Peace University that Krystal mentioned, it's an excellent course. Sometimes things are right there for us, right? Here to open up a book and to learn or to ask other people for advice, but we don't do it. Right?
That's true.
Here, you have to have a plan, and this is a plan that's laid out. Here, we just need to act upon it.
How would you encourage so you both are financial experts. You love talking about money, but we have people who don't. They'd rather go to the dentist to have a root canal than to go put a budget together. So how would you encourage those people that are like, I haven't looked in my bank statement for months, and so I don't know what's going out, but I don't want to know because it's just ignorance is bliss. How would you encourage a person like that?
I mean, sometimes if you're married, sometimes there's, like Dave Ramsey calls them, the nerd, or someone the free spirit. The free spirit seems to hate that, even if you're single. But you just got to do it. You just got to buckle down. God blesses us when we steward well, and it's just important to know where your money is going.
That's true.
And so it's important to be generous, and it's important to know where your money is going. So
that's good. We're going to talk about priorities in a moment. Jesus has a lot to say about finances, but let's go back to, you mentioned, Steve, generosity, and let's talk about that aspect of giving. So someone who wants to become more generous, let's start there. So someone wants to become more generous, where would you encourage them to start?
Well, I would say to start in the church here, giving in the church. Can I read a scripture? Proverbs 11:24-25. One gives freely, yet grows all the richer. Another withholds what he should give and only suffers want.
That's good.
Yeah.
No, that's good.
Absolutely. We need to trust God here.
Yeah.
And once again, we talked about taking action and trusting God here. Faith and gratitude, I've heard this quote many, many times, are like muscles.
Okay.
You need to use them here and exercise them so that they grow.
That's good.
Here.
Yeah,
and
that's good.
giving, at least in my opinion, here is an act of worship.
Right.
Here, and it's an act and exercise in faith.
Wow, that's good. I love what there's a common theme of what you've been saying about trust, gratitude. You don't often think about those in the realm of finance, but when we're talking about the spiritual aspect of that, trust and gratitude play an important role. I love that. What would you say, Krystal, about someone becoming more generous? Where would they start?
I agree with Steve.
Yeah.
The Bible
Surprise, the experts agree.
The Bible talks about bringing your tithes
Yeah.
and offerings to the storehouse.
Okay.
And I love our church. Our church is a generous church. We partner with Hope the Mission.
Sure.
We partner with Foster All. We partner with the food pantry.
CareNet.
And across the globe.
Yeah.
And so I recommend going to a church that you trust and bring your tithes and offerings there. And also to be spirit-led.
That's
sometimes you might be in a grocery store and see someone having to take something out of their basket because they can't, afford it. Just be willing to give when God asks you to give. Good. And I remember hearing that, I forget who it was, but someone kept a $100 bill in their wallet, and they just asked the Lord, tell me when and where to give that.
Right.
And so first and foremost, the storehouse, like the Bible commands us to do, and then just being willing to give when God calls on us to do that.
Amen. Steve, I want to go back to you because you were saved a little bit later in life. And so you have some remembrance of, and again, I don't know, but you were saved later. So I don't know if you were generous before and then you're more generous after, or if you weren't generous before. But I'm curious of your perspective of, because I don't think generosity is necessarily just a check, or I think it's a spirit. I think it's an attitude. I think it's something that just permeates us. And so, I mentioned earlier, you're one of the most generous people I know, but it's not just because of what you are doing to help people. It's just this attitude that you have. Can you speak to that? Maybe generosity spirit.
Yeah, before I accepted Christ as my Savior, was I as generous? Not that much.
Okay.
Not that much here, I'm ashamed to say it, but it is what it is, And that's what Christ has done for me and countless others here, is the gratitude here. Another quote, I always collect quotes, right? Here. It's, we're talking about being grateful here. Another quote is this, is that it's hard to be grateful if you feel entitled to something.
That's good.
I don't feel entitled to anything.
That's good.
I'm so grateful that Jesus, saved me and my wife, my family.
That's amazing.
Here. I'm not entitled to that. I'm grateful that he's done that.
That's good.
And when you have that attitude and apply that to other areas of your life here, you get joy out of doing things like giving.
That's true. That's good. Because then you see the people, even a couple of years ago, there was a family that they didn't have a car. And so I know you and some others were, hey, we're going to pitch in and we're going to get this family a car. And that's that generosity spirit that is so powerful. And I think that should be a mark of Christians and believers, is that they're walking in generosity. But in order to do that, you have to clear out some things that hold us back so that we're able to be more generous. Let's go back. Let's go to priorities, because you've talked about gratitude, trust, and some of these things. You mentioned, you're touching on it, Krystal, but I want to dig a little bit deeper. So Jesus teaches that where your money is, that's where your heart is. Where your treasure is, that's where your heart is. So how do finances, and this is kind of going back as well to the person who doesn't like to talk about money or look at their bank statement, but you just said, well, you got to do it. Yeah. And Jesus is reminding us that where your treasure is, that's where your heart is. So how do finances reflect our priorities?
I think Jesus said that to show us where our values are.
Okay.
And we can easily look at our bank statement and see where our values are.
Okay.
Is it in entertainment? Is it in our
Right.
kids' sports? Is it in vacations? Is it in our clothes?
Sure.
Where are our values?
That's good.
Our cars, or not that any of that is bad
Sure,
or
yeah.
wrong,
Right.
but I think God calls us to value Him first, to be
Right.
Lord of our life, to be Lord in our time and our finances.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking of Peter when he got off the boat to walk on water. When he was looking at Jesus, when Jesus was his priority, he was on solid ground,
That's good.
even in the midst of the ocean. And so it's when he looked at his circumstances that he began to sink.
Yeah.
And looking at, life, keeping our eyes focused on the Lord, and life happens.
Right.
The storms are going to come, waves are going to crash
That's
over
right,
us.
yeah.
But when our priority is the Lord and
Yes.
we're looking at Him, we will be on solid ground, and He'll get us through
That's
those
good.
circumstances.
No, that's so good. That's good. Steve?
Yeah, I agree with Krystal here. Our focus, what we focus on, really dictates our actions.
Yeah.
Is another way of saying it
Right,
as well.
that's true.
We could take things that are not financial,
Right,
right?
right.
For example, I'm trying to lose some weight. Okay.
Okay. That's
And
a
I've
different
been-
podcast episode.
I've been focused on it, and I have lost 15 pounds
Awesome.
since September 1.
Congratulations.
Hoo-ah.
That's amazing.
But it's the same thing
Yeah.
here. If we focus on just, going out and getting the biggest house and
Right.
and the best car and
Yeah.
earning, and that's all you're focused,
Yeah.
you're not storing up treasures
That's
in
right.
heaven
Yeah,
here.
that's true.
And remember, your focus really dictates what your actions are.
That's right.
As Krystal said, none of those things are bad,
Right.
but it's the focus and where your heart is.
That's good.
Here that really, determines, where you're spending. Not only your finances, but I want to add to what Krystal said, your time, right?
Yeah.
Here,
Yeah.
your time as well.
That's good.
So I think I've actually got that from you. Yeah, your money and your time.
That's right, yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Your money and your time.
So
Yeah.
encourage some young families. How do they cut through, the marketing, all of the cultural aspects of more, or like you mentioned, the bigger house, the different zip code. I only have 2-car garage. They have 3-car. I need that. They don't have 3 cars, but they need the 3-car garage. Like, how do you cut through really because really what you're suggesting and you're saying, it's scriptural, but it's countercultural. So how can we cut through that when we're trying to raise a family?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the family here. If you take a look, literally, persons, working the additional hours
Right.
to earn a little
Yeah.
extra money so
Right.
they could make the debt payment on the car
Yeah,
or,
right.
or whatever the case may be. If you take a look, Krystal will tell you, what's the number one cause of divorce?
Yeah, finances.
It's finances,
That's
right? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Here, and that the parents are out of the home, working. They can't spend time with their kids, raising them up and giving them the proper attention that they need, so they don't get into or develop any bad habits. So you talk about family,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
If you love your family,
Okay.
which everyone does,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
This is an opportunity for you to even spend more time with your family.
That's good.
Here.
That's good.
So that you could really sow into them
Right.
here, and you'll see that benefit
That's good.
with the family as well. So,
Yeah, that's good.
that was big with me here.
Yeah.
Personally, obviously, my wife and I making that decision in '95 to trust God
Right.
with our finances. But you see the other benefits of that
Yeah,
as well
that's right,
here.
that's right. That's good.
So.
Well, it sounds like what both of you are saying is that our finances are intensely spiritual, that it really is about praying and seeking God's face. And I think sometimes we think that money is just this, thing that we compartmentalize it. It's money's over here, my faith is over here, but you both are saying that they're both intertwined, and I think that's a really healthy way to view money. Our final question of our top 5, and then we have a couple listener questions we'll mention, is this: if there was one thing that you would hope everyone listening would take as far as one next step action in their personal finance? And I know that's a pretty broad question because you don't know everyone's particular situations, but just generally speaking, what would you encourage somebody to do?
Can I'll be happy to answer that, but can I just make a comment on what you just said here? I think, obviously we've talked a lot about, folks that need to trust God in their finances here. But I also want to make a comment to folks that here are doing well financially.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Here, we need to be careful, right? And continue to do the things that we were doing.
That's good.
Here.
Yeah.
That we don't get distracted.
That's good,
And
Steve.
that we keep the focus here.
That's good.
Here. Because that's a danger as well.
That's true. You're right.
It certainly is a danger here. You get comfortable. Right?
That's a good word, Steve.
Here.
That's a good word. Normally when we talk finances to the church, we're talking to people who are struggling, but you're talking about people who are thriving.
Yeah.
And there's word in there. You know, Paul tells the young leader Timothy, don't put your hope in that wealth because that's fleeting.
Yes.
And so I love that, Steve. Thank you for mentioning that. The action, though, for those, and maybe share an action for those who are thriving.
Sure.
What would be a next step for them?
Well, one of the verses that I have on my phone, I have many verses that come up, sometimes every other day, every month or whatnot. But one of them is 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 17 and 19. And this is for those that are doing well now. As for the rich in this present age, charge them not to be haughty, not to set their hopes on the uncertainty of riches, but on God, who richly provides us with everything to enjoy. They are to do good, to be rich in good works, and to be generous and ready to share, storing up for themselves treasures in heaven. So,
that's good. I love that, Steve. Thank you. What about you, Krystal?
Well, the main takeaway would be to put God as your priority, to ask Him to align your value system with His. And it's, He's so gracious that when we're not feeling it, He will give us that grace to, when we ask to align ourselves with Him. But also just budget. And if you need extra help to join one of our finance classes, it's really important to get your finances under control.
That's good.
Yeah, I would agree. Just one other comment. Sorry for talking so much.
No, this is great.
Here, what Krystal said about budgeting here. We have a condition here in America, and just as human beings, we think that, tomorrow is going to be the same as today, and next week is going to be the same here as today, and that doesn't happen all the time. Things happen, life happens,
that's
like
right.
Krystal said, right?
Yeah.
So that's why you need to budget here.
Yeah.
Obviously, put God first, honor Him
Right.
with your giving.
Yeah, that's good.
Make a plan, as Krystal says,
Right.
and budget for that.
Love
Budget for those emergencies, because we all know that they're going to happen.
Right.
But we tend to get comfortable and we forget. We have short-term memory.
Right, that's true.
But,
That's
anyway.
true. I love that. Well, you both have been amazing answering these top 5 questions about finance. We actually solicit questions from our listeners, and they have 2 questions, if you have a moment, to just quickly answer those. You've actually answered them somewhat in some ways, but I want to ask them to you specifically now. Because we have a person who, you mentioned faith and trust, that's been a common theme. But, and they're honest, and I appreciate their honesty so much. But a listener sent in this question of, if you have second thoughts on giving, should you still give? What would you say to them?
I would say yes.
Okay.
The Bible says that's the one area we're allowed to test the
That's
Lord.
right,
And it's so important, test the Lord in it.
Yeah.
Put Him first and see what will happen.
That's
and
true.
Sometimes life still, does happen,
Sure.
but you'll be amazed at how God will bring you through those circumstances.
That's true. That's
so
good. That's
always
good.
put Him first, always give.
Yeah, I would agree. If you're having second thoughts, give and give more.
Okay.
Here, because, God doesn't want you to have second thoughts,
That's
right?
true. Yeah.
He wants you to give with a cheerful heart.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's
So
true.
if you're having second thoughts, who is that from?
Oh, that's good.
So
good.
give and give more.
That's good. I love that.
So.
I love that. I think too, it's that fear of that, maybe that first step, because
Yes.
this person might they want to maybe get involved, but they're nervous because they haven't had that pattern. And so I love what you're sharing of, that thought, first of all, is not of the Lord, but also there's blessing on the other side as you push through and give. And again, we don't give to get. We understand that.
Right.
We're not name it, claim it,
Absolutely.
prosperity God. We're not that, but I have seen God even in my own life. And I know you both have those experiences as well, that God just above and beyond our wildest imagination, he does bless, not just financially, but peace.
Yeah.
He gives family blessing. There's so many things that he does. The last question that came in, and you mentioned it a little bit, Steve, but just maybe we can lay out a practical plan for this listener. They want to know, how do I plan for emergencies? My pet gets sick, my kids get injured, car breaks down. You mentioned budgeting for that. I know Dave Ramsey talks about putting $1,000 aside for emergency fund. Is that maybe the solution? Is there another maybe thought that you want to share with them?
It keeps coming back to the same thing: trusting God with your financing, and then taking action. So, in my mind, here, I would call the church.
Okay.
And I would sign up for FPU, Financial Peace University,
okay,
right?
That's good. Yeah.
Here, because you need a plan.
Yeah.
Here, so often we want to do things, but there's no plan in place.
Yeah.
And we spin our wheels.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And we don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Here, someone else has laid out a blueprint for us to follow that will get us to where we want to be.
Right.
Then follow that.
That's true.
Here. So I'm a big believer in Financial Peace University.
That's good.
And even if you don't want to do that, there's other resources here online here and that you could use.
That would encourage
as well.
people. Yeah, I think back to the story you shared earlier, Krystal, of that family, food or gas, and they trusted. And the Lord, we've seen it do it in scriptures where the oil didn't run out for the widow, and he miraculously fed thousands of people with just a few loaves and fish. And it seems that sometimes if we're so nervous about an emergency, then we're not exercising faith. So how would you encourage that person who's trying to prepare or save for emergencies?
Yeah. I believe that you should at least get to 10% of your savings for putting it away in savings and emergency.
Okay.
Eventually. You might, so like Dave Ramsey says, to save an initial $1,000 just in case.
Sure.
Then you would go to pay off your debt.
Okay.
And then the next step would be to save 3 to 6 months.
Okay.
And it's important to have that because life happens, like what we've been saying.
Yeah.
And you want to have that backup if you need it and when you need it.
Yeah.
And
that's good.
Yeah.
And then when you do have that set aside, $1,000 or even more, then those emergencies tend to not happen as much.
It's
or
true.
at least if they do, it doesn't feel like it's emergency because it's like, you know what, we're going to take care of that and it's going to be okay. Well, Krystal, Steve, thank you so much for being here. And I pray that you were encouraged and strengthened by our conversation today and that you learned something. And we want to encourage you that your money matters and it's a financial connection between you, or a spiritual connection rather, between you and your finances, and trusting the Lord and making sure that he is first in all things. And so if you have any questions, we'd love to hear from you. You can message us online. You can email us. You can see us at the Highlands. We'd love to help you in any way that we can, but we want you to win with money and know that trusting God is so important when it comes to finances. I'll see you at our next episode, our final episode of the season, as we tackle the topic of gratitude. I'll see you then. Have a great week.